The Big 12 is all but settled, and there are plenty of teams that are still in contention. BYU heads to Cincinnati, who hasn't had the best stretch as of recently, but has a chance to put a wrinkle in BYU's plans for the offseason. We're going to dive into this game, make a prediction, and talk about why BYU needs to be focused in this game. Now, for BYU, it's been a fun year. I think we can pretty much stop doubting Kalani Sitake and what he's able to do as a head coach. It seems like every year he just continues to exceed expectations. BYU, even though they are 9-1, that's a team that I think a lot of people have doubts about. You saw kind of some of those concerns against Texas Tech, but this is still a solid football team. You don't go 9-1 by mistake. And in the Big 12, this is a team that has found success early and often. And Sitake, again, with expectations being so low, continues to exceed those expectations, really shatters those expectations. Now they are 9-1. They very much are on the path to potentially get into the college football playoff, and they control their own destiny to the Big 12 championship game. They are going to be a really difficult team to beat no matter who you are. And a big reason has been Bear Bachmeier. When Bachmeier took over, you thought maybe there was going to be some growing pains, and there definitely were, but this is a guy who has hit the ground running, and he's been a competitor since day one. So far this year, 2,100 yards, 13 touchdowns to just 4 interceptions. Very good for a freshman quarterback. He's also run for 479 yards and 10 more scores. When you look at some of his performances, you've seen obviously the freshman side of him come out. You've seen games where he struggled. You look at the Texas Tech game, the Arizona game. There have been games where he has struggled, but he's also shown some strengths as well. You look at some of the games he's performed well against Iowa State on the road. Last week against TCU was an absolutely dominant performance by the BYU Cougars, and that's been a big development for this offense. When you came into this year, it was Jake Retzlaff that was running the show. When he ultimately transferred, there were some concerns about the quarterback position. And when Bear Bachmeier was announced, there were a number of discussions about, one, his abilities, but then also his number. 47 is just still a weird number to see as a quarterback, but his success has basically told people, it doesn't matter what number I am, I can still play. And that's been helpful, especially for a rushing attack that we knew was going to be extremely exciting. Now, it hasn't been as deep of a group as we anticipated, but that's because LJ Martin has taken care of business. They haven't needed a rotation because LJ Martin's a stud. 912 yards and 6 touchdowns for him. He's been a nice piece in that rushing attack, and Bachmeier's been the perfect complement for him. The bigger question that we have is, what is this passing attack going to look like? That was a question we had coming into this year. Bachmeier has basically just all but settled those concerns, even with some of his deficiencies. Now, Chase Roberts was the guy that we anticipated to step up and be that wide receiver one. 702 yards and 5 touchdowns for him. We did have some questions about the rest of the passing attack. One of those guys is Parker Kingston. We didn't know what he could be as a wide receiver. We knew he was talented as a returner, but could he elevate his game as a wide receiver? He has done that. 44 catches, 639 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Carson Ryan, 371 yards and 3 touchdowns for him. He's been nice at the tight end position. You knew that he could potentially be a factor in this passing attack, and he has stepped up in a big way as well. They recently got JoJo Phillips back as well, so that's been a really interesting development, especially late in the season. So the passing attack has taken huge strides as the seasons progress, and they're going to need it against a Cincinnati team that, if they're not careful, can put up quite a few points in a hurry. Now, it's up to this defense for BYU to be able to shut them down. They are going on the road, but this is a defense that has been tough all year. The defensive line had some questions. The linebackers were supposed to be the strength of this team, and the linebackers have lived up to those expectations. I think the defensive line is still super underrated. They've stepped up their game as well, and it's a big reason why BYU has had so much success shutting down the opposition. You look at what they've been able to do, they're 14th in scoring defense. They've been able to you look at last week against TCU. That's just one game, but that's the effect that this defense can have. You throw people off, you made people like Josh Hoover look very inconsistent, and then your team's able to pull away. And that's going to be a huge thing here because the team that they're facing has a quarterback that is capable of shredding you apart, but Brendan Sorsby also has games where he could potentially struggle. Now, when it comes to the Cincinnati side of things, Sorsby's been the backbone of this offense, which isn't surprising. We knew Brendan Sorsby was going to be that guy. We knew that he was going to be a big part of this offense. And so far this year, he has delivered. 2,218 yards, 22 touchdowns to just 4 picks. He's done a great job of taking care of the football, and he's been a confident passer that has shredded any defense that they pretty much face. 483 yards and 9 touchdowns as a runner as well. So that's an element that BYU must figure out. How do you keep him in the pocket, and how do you limit those explosive plays? Tawi Walker and Evan Pryor have been a nice 1-2 punch in that backfield. Walker's averaging 6 yards per carry. Pryor's averaging 7.2. So that the trio of Sorsby, Walker, and Pryor have been very good for a rushing attack that needed to step up in a big way for Cincinnati. Similar to BYU, this was a Cincinnati passing attack that we had questions about. Not because the quarterback was in question. That much was the certain part of this offense. But who was going to be his top target? Who were going to be his wide receiver 2 and 3? You brought in Cyrus Allen from the transfer portal. Same thing with Jeff Caldwell and Caleb Goody. And all 3 of them have stepped up and been those reliable players. Allen leads the team with 41 catches for 572 yards and 10 touchdowns. Caldwell has been explosive at times, averaging 16 yards per catch. Goody has been super underrated. Only 20 catches, but he's turned that into 380 yards, which is 19 yards per catch. It's an explosive group when they are playing at a high level. Oh, and by the way, tight end Joe Royer is super underrated as well. 358 yards and 4 touchdowns. So this passing attack is deep. This passing attack is dangerous. And if Cincinnati is going to pull off an upset here, they are going to have to use that passing attack to create explosive plays and put BYU kind of on their heels. Now, where Cincinnati has some bigger questions is on the defensive side of the ball. This is a defense that has been very hit or miss so far this year. It's a group that has had some success, but it's also a group that has struggled, especially recently. The last 2 games, they gave up 30 points to Arizona. They gave up 45 to Utah, and they're on a 2-game losing streak that they're looking to snap. And while their Big 12 title hopes are all but erased, that is still something that they can potentially do. They can potentially put a wrinkle in the Big 12 title race by beating BYU at home. And one of the things that people keep forgetting is the importance of Nippert Stadium. That fan base is incredible. BYU has a similar home field advantage, and people kind of forget how good Cincinnati has it with that fan base. That stadium is great. It's always loud. And if you can pull off an upset against a BYU Cougars team, that's going to be very interesting. When it comes to picking this game, Cincinnati's explosive plays are going to be the biggest key. If they create explosive plays, BYU doesn't have an offense that can keep up in a shootout. They just don't. They can't go score for score. They have to dictate the pace. Can they put up points? Absolutely, but they need to do it on their own terms. If Cincinnati creates explosive plays, that's going to put them in the driver's seat. It's also going to get that stadium rocking and put a lot of pressure on a freshman quarterback in Bear Bachmeier. Now, if BYU does what it's done all year, which is dictate the pace, control the tempo, they're in a position to win this game. I have picked against BYU way too many times this year. I think this is going to be a close game, but I do think that BYU comes out on top, keeps their Big 12 and college football playoff title hopes alive. But Cincinnati at home is a much tougher opponent than I think people realize.